Welcome into the Sunday Smash. This is Ira Schofel along with Dominic Robinson, D-Rob, who is our, you guys know him, of course, from his days playing for Florida State, but also is our lead football analyst doing the watch-along shows and also some of his analysis pieces that we had one up on the website and on Warchant TV last week on YouTube, breaking down Johnny Wilson and the passing game and some of the things Florida State's doing. So we're going to be here tonight. We're giving Tom and Jeff the night off. So it's going to be me and D-Rob answering your questions, talking about the Noles 44-14 win. I'll be partaking in a beverage. Dominic's probably going to be drinking water because he's a healthy guy. And we're going to talk about the Noles and maybe kind of look ahead also to this game next week against Wake Forest. D-Rob, I know I went back and watched a little bit of the watch along. Again, for people that don't know, Dominic is watching the games with our staff, with Tom Lang and Aslan and Gene during the games and doing a watch along, giving his analysis during the games as well. If you haven't done that, you can go back and watch those as well. You can go back and on YouTube and find those replays and see what D-Rob was saying in the moment and see what some of his thoughts on this team. So welcome in, Dominic. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing great, man. These Sundays are happy Sundays. And we haven't had a lot of these in the past. We just had 4 straight, or really 5 straight, because we had a bye, and you always win the bye week, So 5 straight happy Sundays. So it's great. It was really fun to watch that team play last night and just dominate from front to back all the way through. He was great. It was a really great performance.
I was in the 3-2-1 piece I write that will probably be up on the site either later tonight or in the morning. I kind of draw a comparison to me to that game to the 2013 NC State game. And now I don't think that this Boston College team is probably as good as that 2013 NC State team. That was a ranked team. We thought that was going to be a tough game. Boston College has a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of issues that they're dealing with. So it's not a great team. But in terms of just coming out and just dismantling an opponent, it's something we haven't seen a lot. So beyond like the way Jordan played, and there were like a lot of really good moments. Jordan had some great moments. A lot of different players had nice moments. I just thought that intensity, after you saw it right after the kickoff return for a touchdown, they showed Mike Norvell on the sideline, and he looked like as intense as you've probably ever seen him. Was that one of your big takeaways?
Yeah, I think it's really important to think about and look around college football. I mean, hell, look around the NFL today. The Jaguars, blew somebody out. The parity right now in football, period, is probably like it's never been at any time, both at the college and the pro level. So you never should take a blowout win or any win for granted. A win is a win. Just ask, the guys that got beat by App State, what it's like to play what is considered a below average team, at Texas A&M, and they take it out. And just really across college football, period. You're seeing, what are considered good teams losing to what are considered maybe not so good teams. So when your team goes out and dominates from the opening kickoff until the final buzzer, and there never was a doubt, you just can't take those things for granted. Those are special wins, and those mean a lot. And I think something that we should probably touch on tonight, and just in general, is the importance of those games and what they mean for the team down the road. Not because of, for Jordan Travis or Johnny or any of these guys. It's the depth that you're creating by getting guys in live action early in a game when they typically wouldn't play, in scenarios where they're carrying out the actual game plan, where they're doing things that the coaches have asked them to do all week that they normally don't get to do on Saturdays because the number one guy is doing it. Tate now has played three out of the 4 games. Right. Those snaps are invaluable, man. Those are things that, I would say over the years, even prior to when I was at Florida State, that was one of the things that really made us incredibly special. Was our twos played so much. the backups, Peter Boulware was Andre Wadsworth's backup. So you got 2 All-Americans, and one of them's not even playing. He's getting, mop-up duty. And so, we're certainly not there. We're not at that point. But the point I'm trying to make is those types of games are important to play. It's important that you get out there, that you execute your plan from front to back, and then you get other people that typically don't get to play on Saturday to also execute and get out there. And they're going through the actual calls. It's not garbage time calls. It's not just base defense. It's not just your day one install offense. So yeah, those wins are fun. They're really fun, and they're way more important than people think. Because those wins actually win you a game later because the depth that you can create. Throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think just looking on defense, a couple guys that I thought looked a lot better this time than we've seen them in the past. It's like a redshirt freshman, Patrick Payton, at defensive end. He's gotten in before, and we've seen flashes of him. But I thought the fact he was on the field for 30, 40 snaps, you could see him developing, I thought, before our very eyes. And I think there's a lot of examples like that. Shaheem Brown's a guy who he's getting to play more and more and more. Now he's in that second team. He's in the higher in the rotation. But you could just see those guys getting better and better as they get those opportunities. We do have a few questions. Somebody asked earlier in the super chat about this game and if there's any concerns or plans if the hurricane becomes a problem. That's a Florida man in Texas asks any published plans for Wake if the storm prevents playing Saturday at Doak. Not yet. I mean, everybody wants to know now, and I get it because everybody wants to make plans. Are we coming for the game? Are we not coming for the game? And obviously the number one issue on everybody's mind is safety. But there's a lot of things that have to happen before Florida State can even make a decision. From talking to people around the program, their plan right now is that they're going to play on Saturday. If something happens to where the state has to shut down or roads are shut down or, there's an imminent threat to this area, then that could be affected. But right now, the models are so uncertain that they're not making any decisions yet. So I think it'll be, I don't know exactly when. I would be surprised if there's any decision made before maybe Tuesday. I guess it's possible tomorrow if it looks something happens. But for right now, the plan is that they're playing on Saturday. They do have some options. They can look at some things. Tom tweeted, posted on Twitter. Tom Lane posted on Twitter, and he may have posted on the message boards that there is an opening probably later in the season where they could maybe move around a game for Wake, where Florida State has a bye week and maybe try to make it happen. But I think the plan is to try to play this Saturday. So that's what they'll try to do unless something changes. And then there was another question. I think Jeremy had a question for you, Dominic.
Yeah, about Norvell's offense.
Let me read it. Let me just read it real quick because some people are listening and not watching. Jeremy asked, thanks, Jeremy, for the contribution as well as you, Florida man. D-Rob, does this offense remind you even more of Norvell's offense at Memphis in terms of play calling and philosophy? Thanks, and go Noles and go Warchant.
I definitely see elements of it. I wouldn't quite say that it reminds me of it. I think the thing that I'm seeing is I'm seeing an evolution and from the original Memphis offense, or the offense that I watched in his final year at Memphis. I'm seeing sort of an evolution. The game has changed. I guess that was 4 or 5 years ago. The game has changed. So I'm seeing the bare bones of the Memphis offense, but with the 2022 twist to it. He certainly has found something with the backs that is probably not hard to see because those guys are phenomenal players, all 3 of them. And I think we got a 4th one too with the little Hill.
Yeah, Rodney Hill. Yeah.
So he certainly was back heavy, there at Memphis. Loved to run counter. I don't think he obviously not many people have a quarterback like the one that Florida State has now. So he didn't have a guy that was as dynamic, back there. And so, you're seeing sort of an evolution that involves a more quarterback centric, quarterback friendly sort of offense, where the offenses that I watched at Memphis were very heavy on their running backs. It was really all running back, and they didn't depend on the quarterback to do much. And this offense, they depend on Jordan Travis to do a lot, and rightfully so.
Let me ask you one question. Norvell talks about this a lot, and I actually heard on the broadcast they mentioned it as well. That their passing game is a rhythm passing game, and it sounds like one of the reasons we're seeing Jordan have so much success now is he's become more comfortable with that. Can you kind of explain what a rhythm passing game is and what's different about that versus maybe like the passing offense we saw under Jimbo or somebody else?
Yeah, I would say typically. Now, I personally wouldn't describe our passing offense as that way.
Okay.
Just me being honest, but I would say that there are some elements of that. But the thing about the sort of a rhythm offense is essentially, things are based on, so say me as a wide receiver, my third outside step, I need to be planting and breaking in a direction. The quarterback is expecting me to do that. He's knowing I'm going to do that. And that ball is going to be delivered before I even plant on the third step. And so, and so there are some elements of that. And that's, kind of what it would be described, in terms of like being a rhythm offense is like a lot of teams are that way because they, sort of they're lacking somewhere. Maybe the quarterback has trouble reading later, post snap reading. So it's like, okay, we're going to decide pre-snap where the ball's going, and it's going to be out on rhythm. Sometimes it has to do with the offensive line. If you have, say one of your main guys gets hurt up front, it's like, okay, we know the ball has to be out on this timing because we're not sure if we can protect a certain concept that we want to run to push the ball down the field. So that's what it would refer to. Again, I personally wouldn't say that that's what
it seems like maybe it seems like they do it sometimes. It seems like there's elements to it.
There's definitely an element to it, and I'm sure there's I'd say probably half of the calls are sort of rhythm based rhythm throws, so it's definitely a great way to sort of get your concepts to go without having to depend on, again, the quarterback reading post snap, and then also your offensive line having to protect a little bit longer.
Seth in the chat asks, after the game, he says, EJ said he could tell Jordan knows what to do with the ball and where to go. Do you agree, D-Rob? And also, how much fun would it have been you to play with EJ?
I would agree. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, were you able to watch a lot of the offense when EJ was here?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I would agree with that 100,000%. He is in complete control right now. And these are things that are very interesting. They're interesting to me as a coach and a person who sort of studies the mental part of all games, football, baseball, basketball, all of it, because this thing also comes and goes very quickly in terms of when you're in what we call kind of the zone, where everything seems to be coming easily and you're seeing things at a way. But he's very convicted in almost all of his throws. And what I mean by that is, depending on what the defense does post snap, a lot of times that will not confirm what you thought it was pre snap, and then you won't have conviction in making that throw. So if I decide I'm going to throw the post route and the ball is snapped, and now the defense does something different than what I thought pre snap, I may be a snap late, and goes back to those rhythm throws that you're talking about. I may be a split second late. I may take my eyes off of it and look somewhere else really quick and then try to come back. and he's just not doing that like almost ever. He's deciding. He knows what the defense is going to do. He knows what his offense is. He knows where he needs to escape when he does have pressure. He's understanding his protection very well. And so he's doing all of those things at an incredibly high level. He's really like this decision making has been off the charts. You know, that the one pick that he threw in the Louisville game is really seems like the only poor decision he's made in 4 games, which is just incredible. It's off the charts, you know. So yeah, I would say, yeah, he definitely is in complete control of, and I'm not just talking about the passing game. Also, it's also in the running game. He is understanding when to get us out of bad runs when the box is loaded, and throwing quick screens out to the wideouts. And this could also be a Coach Norvell thing. That could be it could just be within the system. He might not be personally making those checks, but I've seen at least a couple of times where it's up to him. Everybody thinks that it's a run, and
Right.
at least, and there was twice last night. Everybody thought it was a run, and he threw a now screen out to one time was Johnny. I think the other time was Micah. So that was at least twice, and both times those were the right calls at the right time. And yeah, he's just playing at a high level. And oh my gosh, if I played with EJ, I might not be here right now. I might actually still be in the league. I would have loved to play with EJ. It was I absolutely enjoyed watching him play. I thought he was a phenomenal player, phenomenal athlete. And I was very jealous of the guys that did get to play wide out when he was here, or when he was there. I guess I'm not there, but yeah, when he was there, I was a big fan of his, and you really enjoyed watching him play.
It's funny, man. Like EJ, for whatever reason, I think a couple things. One is, you know, there were the team got so good so quickly that like everybody's expectations changed. You know, in 2009, this team was just struggling to try to get to a bowl game. 2010, they have, you know, a good season, get to the bowl game, beat South Carolina, go in 11 with all those expectations, and don't, you know, don't do everything you hope to do. And then 12, you know, it looks like a national championship team, and they fall short. And for whatever reason, it seems like people don't view fans sometimes don't view EJ at the level he really played at. But man, he played at a super high level, and he also was extremely tough. I mean, he played that bowl game against Notre Dame with a broken leg, the second half of that game. I mean, he's a tough kid. You know, came up in some big moments. It's just weird. And then the next year, you know, Jameis wins the national title. And so you had people saying, oh, if Jameis had played the year before, we would have won the national title. And that's like, no, man, EJ wasn't the reason that team didn't, in my opinion. He played. There's a lot to go into there, but no, EJ.
The thing about it that I wish people understood, and I talk about this a lot, is the chemistry of a team, of a locker room, is incredibly delicate and volatile, and one little thing here or there is could be a big thing in the the grand scheme of things. You know, it may just seem like, oh, that was just, you know, some third string walk on that got hurt or whatever, but the chemistry of a locker room, of a team, and so there's never just one player. You know, there is no real even swap when you swap a player, you know, because there's more than just the talents and attributes that a player brings to a team. There's a whole bunch of other things that go into it, you know, that guys bring, just different personalities, different work ethics, things like that. And, you know, it's kind of funny or weird, but like sometimes bringing in a harder worker actually could make your team a lesser team because it doesn't fit the personality of your team. Something else that he does, you know, everyone's just kind of think, oh, if they just worked harder, or if they just, you know, but no, EJ was not the reason those teams didn't go. And just swapping him for Jameis isn't the reason why they all of a sudden became a national, contender. But yeah, I thought he was, if you don't get drafted in the first round if you're not a special talent. Like, he was a special guy. He was definitely that guy.
I want to give a shout out to ABC Liquor, Fine Wine and Liquor and Spirits for sponsoring the Sunday Smash. As always, if you need your spirits like the Red Stripe, go to your local ABC store and they will take care of you. They got tremendous selection, great prices, and we appreciate their support. Looking at it this week ahead, I mean, on the one hand, I'd like to spend more time talking about the Boston College win because I do think it was impressive in a lot of different areas. But I also know now we're at that point now where, coming into the season, people were thinking, man, if we could get through the first month at 3-1 or 2-2, and if we could finish 7-6 or 8-4, whatever it is, 7-5, 8-4, you could kind of live with it. But now it's like at 4-0, people are starting to see bigger opportunities on the horizon. So I know I've already seen a lot of questions in the chat about Wake Forest. I'm curious about your thoughts about Wake Forest offense, man. Like that, the slow mesh and all that stuff. What would have you given much thought to what defenses should do? It seems like a lot of teams, they don't want to rush upfield. They kind of want to see what's going to happen,
Right.
but then that seems to backfire sometimes because the back is just waiting for a crease to develop, and so they're so patient with the running game. But then if you do come, Hartman obviously can beat you with the pass. Does anybody else run an offense like that? I know you study football.
Yeah.
Do you see anybody else run anything like that?
No, I mean, they're the originators of it. Technically, I guess they would be the big. There were some small college, high school guys that were sort of doing it. But before it sort of blew up with them. It is incredibly tough to prepare for. I mean, just like anything, though, whenever this is how these things work. When everyone goes wildcat in the beginning, It's very tough to prepare for not because of the actual scheme being tough, but because it's so counterintuitive to everything you do.
Right.
The other 50 weeks of the year. All off season, you're not working on that, sort of thing. And when the season comes, when you go to camp, you're probably not working on whatever that thing is, that new trend, the new fad, whether it's jet sweeps or RPOs or, there's always something that and that's what gives them the advantage is the fact that it's different and you have to prepare differently. I would say to me, I think I saw this up in somebody's locker room or something is like, answer your problems with aggression. So if that is a problem, if that slow mesh becomes a problem, to me, passivity is not the answer.
Right? Can't you
playing it passive? It's answer and especially right now, what it looks like we have in the secondary in terms of guys being able to cover. I think you have to be aggressive. I think you have to rush the mesh and muck it up for him and make it tough for him to make decisions. And then if he's got to throw with guys in his face and it's single coverage out there, then so be it, and if they beat that, then you just tip your cap to them and you say, hey, your guys were better than our guys today, but I think playing it passive and saying, oh, I hope we can stop them. I hope we can just cover down. I just think I love that sort of whatever that saying was, or is just answer your problems with aggression, rush the mesh, muck it up, make him have to make quick decisions. Don't let him make slow decisions. And if he's having to make quick decisions and he's doing it at a high clip and you need to adjust on the fly, in game to try something different, then you go that route. You don't just go out there and just go with one strategy and hope it works. You know what I mean? But I would say my natural first instinct would be, we're going to rush the mesh. We're going to make it hard. We're going to make him make quicker decisions. And then, kind of see how he handles that first.
Yeah, and that's what and again, man, I don't my knowledge of football theory is very limited, so
Yeah,
I don't try to get too much into that. But man, like I you watch it and you're just like, man, like force the issue, like don't
yeah,
let it
yeah,
just sit there. And because especially the Clemson game, I thought particularly Clemson's secondary is not very good. They don't have they're playing some young guys who aren't ready, and man, they just got torched.
yeah,
And it just feels like
yeah,
if you've got that defensive front, it feels like maybe you could force the issue a little bit. But man, look, Hartman's a tough guy. That is, what's going to be an interesting element to this game, assuming it does get played this week, and still seeing people coming into the chat and asking about the game. As far as look right now, as far as everything we know, they're still planning to play this Saturday. If things look dire in a couple days, they may change it, but as of right now, the plan is still to play this Saturday. But the couple of dynamics I think are interesting on both sides of the ball, or on both sides of the game. On the one hand, I think Florida State this past Saturday was probably the best thing that could have happened for Florida State from their perspective. They came out, they showed a tremendous intensity and focus. They played a sharp, pretty clean game in all areas, and then they got the starters out of the game. So you got some rest for some guys. You didn't get a ton of guys beat up. We had a couple guys here and there that left the game, but for the most part, I think you came out of that game pretty clean. On the other side, the fact that Wake just played a physical team in Clemson, you would like to think that maybe this week is going to be a little bit of a grind for them coming off of that game. But I think you said during the live show that you feel like losing close in a game where they felt like they could have won is going to continue to motivate them and propel them, Wake Forest, into this game. So I'm curious, like on Sunday night, like
yeah.
when you're looking at the way these two teams come into this game, do you feel like they're both kind of you're going to get the best shot from both teams?
That's what I think. That's my opinion. Kind of, shout out to Eric, by the way, that on the super chat for that
Oh, thanks,
question
Eric.
about the physical emotional game. I would say that in this case specifically, I would plan for Wake's best shot. I don't think that this will negatively affect them playing the game. I think that they'll be highly motivated because they're still in the running, to get to the ACC. If you can, find a way to get some help and win these games, you're totally fine. You're in decent position. So I believe this will bring them closer together. I think they found something throughout the course of that game that I think probably excites them for future games. So I don't see this as a deterrent, and I could be wrong, but I do think that both teams are sort of primed for to be in good position in terms of where you would want to be. Obviously, they would rather win this game or win that game. I think had they have won that game, the coaches would be a little more concerned because now it's like now they're in position where they've got a stranglehold on the ACC. They've beat sort of the big dogs, right?
Right.
And now I go on the road to play who they probably are considering is a lesser opponent than Clemson, and they could take it lightly and not bring their A game for that. After a loss, you are more locked in than you've ever been because you definitely don't ever want to lose two in a row. So I just think I think you're going to get Wake Forest's best shot this Saturday.
Jim chimes in with a question. Thanks, Jim, for the contribution as well. Dom, do you think our offense is on par with Clemson and Wake Forest? I think our defense is good, but I have a feeling that they will both be shootouts. And let me just follow up on that real quick. A few people on the message boards have made the comment, like, you don't want to get into a shootout with Wake Forest. And my point is, I don't know if you have a choice. Like, they're going to score,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one thing you have going for you in this game that Clemson didn't have is Wake will have to be doing what they do on the road, which is going to be tougher. I mean, assuming there's not a hurricane breathing down the Panhandle, there's going to be it would be another sellout crowd. And the point I think a lot of us made before the Louisville game was Louisville looked so bad those first two games because they were on the road. Now they got to play
Mhm.
at home. You were going to see them look a lot more effective. And when we saw that, I think Wake Forest, what you saw against Clemson, they did have the benefit of being at home. Now they'd be playing on the road, so maybe that helps. But I mean, I don't know that you can avoid a shootout with Wake Forest. I think their offense is as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a funny sort of comment just in terms of you don't really get to choose whether it's a shootout or not. Like the game, the game plays out the way it plays out. But I will say, to answer the question, I would put us ahead of Clemson offensively, where we are at this point in the season, which I've actually watched Clemson pretty closely because I have some good relationships there. We are further along than them, mainly because of the quarterback play.
Right.
Again, this guy's playing at a ridiculous level, and their guy isn't. But I would say that Wake Forest would probably be a notch above, and it's not like there's not a huge gap, but their offensive system is so much harder to prepare for. We would be a lot easier to prepare for a defense than Wake Forest would be. And then part of that is the scheme, and then part of that is the personnel.
Yeah, I think they also do a really good job. I mean, look, when Jim Grobe was there, I gave them all the credit in the world for this as well. They do a really good job of evaluating and getting kids to really understand what they're asking them to do, and then they put them in positions. I mean, I think they do a great job of putting them in positions to succeed. So where even if you felt like, okay, if we were at the playground and you were picking, the top 22 players or top 44 players, sometimes you may not think the Wake's guys, but they have guys that are better athletes than most people think, and then they understand what they're asking them to do, and then they put them in good positions. I mean, like A.T. Perry is a guy that was from the state of Florida that I don't think any of the big three offered, but Wake identified him, and man, he is torched Florida State.
So one of the advantages that you have when you're on that sort of level, in terms of like
who you can recruit,
overall prestige, just
right.
you're sort of, there's sort of tiers, and we for so long, like we by historic proportions, we've had to be in the top tier. We just have to be. One, because Florida and Miami's in our state, and Georgia's right there. Georgia Tech is right there. And then two, because of the success that we had for so long, we just can't drop into that second tier. When you're in that next tier, you have the luxury of looking for specific niches of guys that do the things that can be successful. You don't have to worry about going after a certain level of recruit because those guys don't typically come to you. So you can look within the in all these schools, they essentially design a radius of from their location of their school. They design a radius of who do we want to go after, and then they sit down with the position coach and say, what guy fits your system? Not what guy has the most stars, not what guy has 100 catches or whatever it is that typically from a fan standpoint looks sexy. It's more, okay, well, there's this kid at this high school that's 55 miles away. He only has 27 catches, but man, you got to see what he does when he gets the ball in his hands. Like that guy, we're going to use him on kick and punt return. We're going to use him in our screen game. And, he's never going to get a big time. He's never going to be a big time recruit because he's 5'10", 180 pounds or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Like you're able to look for those little niches of guys that are specific to your system, both offensively and defensively. If we're going to run a 3 down front, there's specific guys that I can look for defensively that maybe the rest of the country aren't even looking at, but now I can look at it and say, like, this guy fits my system, He's that type of player. Z-Chan. What's up, Z-Chan? We appreciate you, man.
Zach's in the house. Appreciate him. And Thomasville's finest. He's a good guy. We got to meet him over in New Orleans. Really nice guy. Thanks for all the insight, D-Rob. Your unique perspective adds a ton. What do you like about how we match up with Wake, and what do you not like about that game? We're getting the whole scouting report here on Sunday night. The game's 6 days away.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great question. And I think I'm going to save that for Thursday. I think I'm going to put together a little breakdown.
Okay.
I'll say preliminarily, I like our quarterback over their quarterback, even though he is, he's a really good player. I think Jordan just has the it factor. He has the intangibles that I just don't think you can game plan for it. There's certain things that he's going to do when the game breaks down or when something breaks down in front of him that you can't plan it. You can't prepare for it Monday to Friday. He just does it on his own. He's just a gamer. He's a guy that's just going to make plays for you. And I'm not saying that Hartman isn't, but I just think I kept saying it during the broadcast. He's a machine gun. Like he's the big weapon that you just can't prepare for,
Man, on that play where his long scramble,
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I mean, I don't know how he gets out of the trouble behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Then I love when he gets to the line of scrimmage and he sees his back still connected and he fakes the pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, man, again, like you're running for your life and there's so many cool things that happen during that run that's just, again, like you said, it's not part of the offense. And he's doing that.
Right.
He's done that so many times now in third and longs or fourth and longs. There's some situations where he's creating something. They didn't have 1 3 and out in that football game. I didn't realize it at the time. They got to fourth down a few times, and they didn't always convert their fourth downs. But they didn't have 1 3 and out in that football game, and a lot of that is because I think he was 6 of 9 on third downs throwing, and then he also had some big runs. So to what you're speaking about, it's hard to kind of it's just hard to quantify because it's not like it's all in the passing numbers or it's all in the running numbers. It's just in the overall production. Yeah.
You can't see it. And I brought it up last night that last night was his first 300-yard passing game.
Yeah.
In 2022, that's insane that you have a quarterback that technically could be considered the best quarterback in college football, and he's just now having his first 300-yard passing game. So you're going, is this his first start? Oh, no, he's actually been the starter for a couple of years now. Like it just doesn't in today's game, that's a dinosaur. The things that he adds to your team, to your program, they're not on a piece of paper. They're not stats. They're not rankings. They're not attributes. There's just a competitive nature that he has that's unmatched. It really is unmatched. He's a special guy. And on top of everything you said, about that scramble,
yeah,
6 days prior, maybe even 4 days prior, we didn't think he was going to even play.
Yeah.
I mean, based on what I saw, I didn't think there was any chance that he was playing that game. I didn't even know until I was walking back to the hotel last night and heard Aslan say it, or heard Tom say it on the pregame show. And I went,
on Tuesday,
man.
Yeah, on Tuesday I thought there was no chance. He was out there, and it was like, okay, it's impressive. He wants to be out there with his brace on, and it was a bulkier brace. And then on Wednesday he started
going, what a great leader. He shows up first team, but there's no way he's playing on Saturday. That's what I was thinking.
Especially against that team. It's a game that you feel like you're probably going to win no matter what. But the fact that he was out there, I think what you were saying about earlier and the dynamics of a team and the personality of a team, like how important is all that? Because, him being out there a week after that injury, and then also like all these other guys like Maurice Smith. When Maurice Smith got hurt, the center got hurt over in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
there were people that when you saw it, like I wasn't at that practice, but everybody who was at that practice said they thought, okay, his season's done, and he thought his season was done. And then the time frame was like 3 or 4 weeks later. Well, then when he comes out 2 weeks later and is playing against LSU, I doesn't that just does something for your
It
team.
does. It does. Those things they're galvanizing. They really pull guys in directions that it's something that again I to me so much credit has to go to Coach Norvell and his staff, because a lot of that comes from recruiting, honestly, because guys don't all of a sudden develop that at 19 years old. Trust me, I work with 16-year-old kids and they show up with incredibly bad habits already at 16, so or 15 or 14. So I can tell you right now, a 19-year-old with a habit to sit out when he's dinged, you're not breaking that in college. That's something that is developed. So you got to recruit the right guy, first of all. And then you have to cultivate an environment that helps water that so that grows and spreads amongst your team. And so you got to give them credit for bringing in the right guys, and then for nourishing and creating an environment where that is praised, that is expected. I think having a level of expectation that's the way we do business, the way Jordan Travis, handled his situation this week. I think when that becomes an expectation of your program, when your quarterback does it, there's nothing more polarizing than that, because everybody expects the quarterback to take it easy. He's the prima donna of the group. He's the softy, he's got the easiest practice of all of us type thing. And when he's got that sort of grit, you can't be a linebacker or a lineman that's sitting out because of a sprained ankle or, something like
Right.
that. So yeah, going back to answering the original question from Z-Chan, I'll let you know what I think of the matchup specifically. But the one thing that I do know is whenever you have Jordan Travis behind center, I think you gotta pick that team, especially when they're playing the way that they are right now.
James B asked in the chat also about Jordan's. A lot of people we thought it was an ankle, and then it turned out to be a knee. It actually was both. I think he had both. He kind of got rolled up on it. It bothered his ankle and his knee. I think the TV broadcast crew talked about talking to Jordan, and he kind of explained it there. So he had pain in both areas. But
and then you watch him play. You literally, I saw nothing.
Right.
I saw nothing Saturday night. I mean, in terms of the way his approach, he was not skittish. He wasn't looking around. He wasn't taking his eyes down onto the rush. He had his eyes downfield when they were doing drop back passes. There's something there, man. He's just a special guy. He's going to get drafted way lower than he should, and then he's going to do something special, I think, because he's just this type of competitor that, man, you can't put a price on that,
Man, on that topic about the culture. So I did a story the other day on Brennan Gantt, who I think is another speaking of what we're speaking about and the selflessness of a team. I think he's the poster child for it. I just did a story about him because he started at safety as a freshman. He started at safety as a sophomore, and even last year, not full time. He was kind of in and out of the starting lineup. They asked him to move to linebacker because they felt like it would help him and help them. And he makes the move, and he's kind of become this special teams demon. Like he's really become a key player on special teams. But when I was talking to him, what was interesting when I interviewed him last week was he made a comment that I thought was interesting. He said, when he talked about the work ethic and the intensity in the team, he said, this is what we've been waiting for. And I was curious about that because, like, from the outside, you'd say, well, why are you waiting on it? You're in the team. Like, what were you waiting for? But how does that, you've been in a million locker rooms, a million clubhouses, around a lot of teams. Does it have to happen organically? Does it have to happen? Like, why couldn't they have forced it to happen, earlier?
I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of chemistry. Is like chemistry can't be forced. It is an organic thing. And us as coaches, we try to find ways to sort of create it, But the reality of it is, as the elements change, so does the timing of the sort of explosion
Mhm.
of that chemistry of those things meeting all at once. And so I think what he's talking about when you say like, oh, we've been waiting on it, it's time plus the element plus whatever the X factor is kind of all those things come together is what makes a special team or a special environment, whatever it is, classroom, office, wherever it is you're doing. And so, it's timing is a part of this. And that's why you heard me say a lot early uh, in some of these broadcasts early on, you heard me say often that this being Coach Norvell's, this kind of being the time where you're going to see his true stamp on the team,
Right.
because it takes time to get to this point. You got to get rid of guys got to grow up, guys got to mature, all of those things. It takes some time for all of these things to sort of come together at once. You got to get your recruits in, you got to get your coaches right, because even when you bring in like your coaches, guys that you want, sometimes they've been somewhere else. They've got to get things figured out. Again, that chemistry is all got to sort of, get cooked in the pot a little bit,
Right.
and it takes some time. And so, and a lot of those things are a big portion of that. Like I said, there's kind of three factors. One, it's the elements. Two, it's the time, and then three, there's always this third X factor of there's this thing that you don't know. It sort
It
of just
sparks
floats
the
over our
kind of,
head. Yeah,
yeah, it
that kind of
ignites
pulls it
everything.
all together. And so when you're waiting, you're sort of waiting. A lot of times, you have the X factor. That might be Jordan Travis. You have, the right players and the right coaches and all that. But now you need time together to figure out, where do I fit in this piece? Where do I fit in this puzzle, to make it the best thing it can be? And I, you know, that's it. Sort of an articulate way of saying, I've been waiting on this,
Right.
because it
Right.
takes it takes things.
So,
There's a
well,
patience element to
and I think like sometimes as a fan or a media person, when you see a team not have the right mix,
it.
like
Hmm.
you kind of assume it's everybody's fault, or
Yeah.
like they're all not
Uh-huh.
bought in. So it's got to be frustrating, I would think, as a player when you want it so bad and you believe you're doing everything you can do, and you like you can't fix it yourself. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
that's got to be tough for a player to want it so badly, but it's not happening. And then
Yeah, yeah, and it's very frustrating, and I could imagine, being on some of those teams, over the past couple years,
right,
where you knew we don't have the ingredients. We just don't have them. Whether it's because of the
offensive
coaching
line
staff,
and
offensive
coaching
line,
staff,
whatever it
yeah,
is, like we don't have the ingredients,
right.
so we just got to
I
do the
can want
best
it
we can.
right. I can want it as
I
bad
can
as I
want it
want it.
all. I
Yeah,
can want it as bad as I want. I can work all I want. I could
yeah,
be the best player that's ever played here, but we don't have the proper ingredients to make something special. We just don't have it. It's just not here. Or maybe we don't have the fire to cook the ingredients. We may have all the, because that's the other thing is, I would say you wouldn't be going out on a limb if you said this team there's been another team with this talent level, over the past 10 years. I think that's probably existed. I don't think that this is
right.
the most talented team that has played there over the past 10 or 15 years. But none of them have been 4-0. None of them have won a home openers, season opener. None of them have won, back-to-back games on the road. All of these things that this team is doing already. They're outperforming their contract, so to speak. They're outperforming their abilities. And so there's something to be said for that. And that's where the whole chemistry part comes in. Is like they have they have a competitive nature that the past teams haven't. There have been other teams that are just as talented, but they haven't had what this group has. This group has something special.
Ben, I think James B had a really nice comment for D-Rob. If we could throw that up there real quick and thank him. D-Rob, this is from James B. D-Rob, I've truly enjoyed and learned from your analysis. Ira, I love you too. Great job, gentlemen. Thanks, James B. Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for the watching and thanks for the support.
Thank you, JB. In the house. We appreciate that, man. We'll try to keep it coming for you. And also, we got to shout out to Tom, who got 16 skins on the golf course today. We didn't say anything about that. I see you, Tom. If I was out there with you, you wouldn't have got 16, though. I'll tell you that.
Tom can strike it a little bit. He could play some golf.
Yeah.
And somebody said earlier that Tom and Jeff backed out of the show because the Bucks lost. That's not true. They this was discussed earlier in the weekend, and they were going to take the night off. And D-Rob was gracious enough to help us out. John asks, when does Jordan Travis go in the Heisman talk? I want to think that's a great question. I actually want to ask that, and also somebody else asked earlier about his NFL aspirations. I want to answer that part first. Somebody said, like, what are the chances? Like, what's he going to do in the future in terms of the NFL? You know, I was hearing during the offseason that there are certainly people in Jordan's camp who think he should go to the NFL next year. He's been in college for 5 years now. He's been in college for a long time. And while he may only be a starter for parts of these last 3 seasons, he's, again, man, your clock is ticking. And so I think there's a lot of people around who want to see him go to the NFL. When I would tell people that in the summer, people would kind of laugh at me. I don't think they're laughing as much anymore. I don't know. I mean, if this season's magical, maybe he just wants to come back and try to win the Heisman. I don't know. But I want to get your take on those two. It seems to me it's really hard to even get in a Heisman conversation unless you were great the year before. Like,
yes, very much.
And you were on a great team probably the year before, so that's going to hurt him. But then also, what are your thoughts about him as a pro? You touched on it briefly earlier.
I did, yeah. So I'll touch on a whole nother element that sort of the wild card in all this is NIL. And had this have been maybe just 3 years ago, I would say he's gone if he continues to play the way that he's playing. But we're living in a whole new world where guys can make decisions a lot differently than they were, even, like I said, even just 2 years ago. So it's very hard to say whether he would go for the money or not for the money, all of that stuff. What I will say is that if he continues to play, he'll certainly be ready and he'll certainly have the opportunity to go do that. He will get drafted in the later rounds, mainly because of, the size concern and arm strength concerns and, and again, the lack of winning and being on good teams. There's a lot left there to be desired in terms of like running an NFL offense because that's, Coach Norvell's offense also doesn't quite lend itself to that. It's not necessarily a pro style offense. But I will say again, like I said earlier, somebody's going to be smart enough to take him later and get a legit weapon, definitely as a backup. He is the perfect backup, NFL backup, because you need a guy who's going to be versatile, who's going to run, who's going to sort of create a spark, when they come off the bench that does something a little bit different. You like to have a guy who maybe can operate the normal offense, but if you can have a little package that's for him, that really puts the team, an NFL team, in a really good position to where now they gain an advantage when the starter gets hurt, because now I've got 15 plays that you didn't prepare for in a quarterback that's totally different from the quarterback that you did prepare for. So I will say that in terms of the Heisman, there's little to zero to negative chance that he'll get into the Heisman talk or Heisman race. Part of it is like what you said, A lot of that has to do with your year prior, and then the team that you're currently on in terms of when the season starts. If you're in the talk for the national title, then you'll also have the opportunity to be in the talks for that. Could he get into it? Yes, but now you're talking about a 10-0 team
Right.
and he has a Heisman moment, in the Clemson game where he throws again. He's only thrown for 300 one time in his career.
Right.
There's no, I mean, go look at Heisman numbers of past Heismans. Guys are literally putting up 300 yards in the first half.
Yeah,
Of
there's
the game. Look at
and the way
Bryce
they
Young's numbers from last year.
right.
You're not getting in the Heisman talk halfway through the season with one 300-yard game. It's just not. This is not happening.
And yeah, and he could be the most valuable player in the world to your team.
He could.
but
No,
it
yeah,
doesn't. But it
no.
doesn't matter.
And I'm not. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that he's not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm just saying based on the way that award is given, it's not. That award is not for him. Should he be in the talk? Yes. He's right now. He's the number one, rated quarterback of any of the quarterbacks in terms of what he's doing. His actual proficiency as a quarterback is better than anybody in the country. So yes, he should be in the talk, but that award is not for the number one player in terms of ability and what they put out on the field. That is a promotional award based on what school you go to, again, the program that you play for, the how many games you won the year prior, and the sort of stats that don't necessarily matter. A lot of that award goes into that.
And the other thing I would say is that the votes for the Heisman are geographical, and so there's voters all around the country. I would bet you right now, if you could do a poll of all the voters, there's a large percentage that don't even know who Jordan Travis is, just because of where Florida State has been the last couple of years. So he's not even on the radar.
I would tell you that too, is that like I travel, I'm all over the country. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people and different, and most people have no clue what we're doing. And that's kind of a crazy thing because there was a time, 20 years ago where we couldn't do anything that wasn't, front page in terms of college football, but nobody has any clue that right now that Florida State's 4-0. Nobody has any clue that Jordan Travis is the best quarterback in the country. Nobody has any clue that Johnny Wilson's, an absolute beast. He's like the number 4, I think, wideout in the country, or 2, something like that. He's up there. So nobody knows yet. And that's good. I'm totally okay with that. I've been hearing a lot about like, we need to be ranked. We need to be ranked. We need to be ranked. I don't really care about that right now. Like, that's not important to me. Now, should we be? Yeah, probably. But in the past couple years, when we've had these drop-offs of the Texases and the Floridas and the Miamis and things like that, they've all had some sort of flash in the pan, move up to number 15 because they beat somebody, and then it's been proven that they are not what we thought they were going to be. And I don't want to be there. I don't want to be that. What I'm seeing is this sustainable, successful model that's going to be sustained for a long time. And when we get there, we're going to stay there. That's what I want. I don't want to be, just bumped up because we won a couple games. Like 4 games to me is just not enough to start dancing around. Like, I think you made a comment today about Twitter, how Sundays become, a day for us to talk our cash. I'm not ready to start talking cash yet, because we've seen these other programs do this. These other programs that were once glorious programs, we've seen them flash in the top 25, and then they lose 3 straight games, or they get beat by somebody. And and so let's stay quiet under the radar, And then, all of a sudden people are going to find out, oh man, we're 8-2. Florida State's 8-2 and they're going to the ACC championship. Let's be those guys. Let's not be the loud, obnoxious guys up front and then lose 3 straight games and end up unranked again.
Got a couple more to get to comments, and then there's one more question I want to ask you about the offense, and we'll wrap it up here. John in the chat says, got to say, D-Rob has quickly become my favorite analyst. I appreciate the experience and thoughtful commentary you bring to every session. Keep it up, my man.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
I appreciate it, man. I'll try to keep, like I said, it flowing for you guys.
And also appreciate, man, JJ51 JCJC, who makes a nice donation. Says he's a Noles since '93 from St. Louis, Missouri. Love the Warchant family. We appreciate it, man. So real quick, 2 things. One is you just mentioned how like Florida State right now is not on the national radar, and you're okay with that. I was thinking back to, and this isn't a great memory for you, I'm sure, but in 2002, when you guys went to Louisville and lost to Louisville, that led Sports Center, like that was that was the story. I've seen that clip a couple times before because it's just like
monsoon. It was raining. Yes, right. It was very shocking. I actually was just in Louisville I was just in Louisville this summer, so I got reminded of it a lot. So I remember.
But isn't it just, what's it like for you as a former player to see where the program was then?
Yeah.
To now being kind of under the radar. I mean, that's got to be kind of weird. I mean, it's still the same.
It's painful, to be honest with you. It's really painful. And even more so, I think the one thing that's like really, really scarred me and hurt me is like I deal with teenage boys who are really into football every day. And have for the past, 10 years or so, even at the college level. And the look on their faces when I mentioned Florida State is so crazy because it's so different than the teenagers of 10 years, the 10 years prior. You mentioned Florida State. There's reverence there. There's excitement. There's wow, like that's a really cool thing. These guys, these kids, they've never seen the Florida State that we know, you and I know, and most of the people that are on this chat probably know, because you probably, you're just like me. You guys have been crazy Noles for a really long time. And so we know what the sort of glory days look like, but these younger guys, they don't. And that is scarring. Like that hurts me to my core. And I want to see it back. I want to see it, the way that they feel about Clemson now is the way that we all felt about Florida State. And that's really weird to me. That's a very weird feeling. Even when I spent time at Clemson this summer, it was eerie because I went, wow, Clemson is us in 2000. The 2020, or I think it was 2021 at the time when I was there, 2021 Clemson is 2000 Florida State. They had just won a national title. Dabo Swinney is Bobby Bowden. Their coordinators are, it was Mike Rick just left. That was Tony Elliott.
Mark Rick,
that was Mark Rick. Like all the parallels between Clemson and Florida State, unbelievable, man. Like I couldn't believe, as I'm walking around, I'm going, this is what our program looked like when I showed up here. What you guys are going through is exactly what I went through. And in terms of, the things that I was seeing, the way that the program was set up is really crazy. It's a family-based environment, all of the things that Florida State, sort of made famous and made special. So yeah, it's a very weird feeling. It's not good. And that's why, again, wins like last night, man, you guys are insane if you take that for granted. Like, let's take that to the bank. That's those are big wins. Let's keep those going, because we were not always winning those games.
All right, last thing I got for you real quick, and we'll get out of here. Thanks again to ABC Fine Wine and Spirits for sponsoring the Smash. We always appreciate it greatly. You guys need to go to ABC if you need any of their goods. I also have, on that note, real quick, Spartan Knoll Ralph is harassing me. Tom Lang's peer pressure me. I got to do a tequila shot, D-Rob. I'm 51 years old, and I'm getting peer pressured into doing tequila shots. But I got to do this because the Noles went 4-0. So in September, so I'm gonna do this shot
did
while
you say?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of it started last season, basically big accomplishments. And so last night, Tom Lane put me on the spot in the post game, saying, "Hey, man, this 4-0 in September. It feels like it's so I'm gonna do a shot of tequila while you answer my question."
Okay.
So, all right. So 4 games now. I think it's 4 games, 4 different leading receivers. We've seen the backs all. We've seen all the backs have different games, big games. Kentron Portier makes the big catch last night. So my question to you, and this kind of touches on what you said before about this isn't the most talented team. Like there's been talented teams in the past. How long can Mike Norvell keep this up? And is it Jordan Travis that can find these opportunities without having like that one stud? And it's man, you don't know from week to week who it's going to be and how long can that last. As you go on during the season. I'll be pouring my shot.
I would say the versatility is exactly what I was talking about in terms of this being a sustainable model. There's not, although yes, you do have a machine gun at quarterback, but aside from him, the guys that he's getting the ball to, the guys that are producing, it's not just a system thing, or I shouldn't say, it's not just a one-on-one winning one-on-one matchups type of thing. These guys are within the system. Everybody's making plays. You've got 3. The first game had 3 backs with 100 yards. Right. I said this during the live show. I was just looking up the rankings nationally, and 5 of the guys, 2 running backs, quarterback, Johnny, are all in above 80 grade. And most teams have 2. We've got 5 that are above an 80 grade on PFF. So you're looking at a level of versatility, a level of just equality amongst the whole team, that this is not just a one guy show. This isn't just a one guy making having a lucky season or a phenomenal season. This is a big time program thing that, it's sustainable. When you're seeing it happen and it's multiple guys doing it, it's sustainable.
Awesome. All right, D-Rob, to you for pinch hitting. I appreciate you coming in, man. Anytime we can have you on the show, it's awesome. And always
have me back, man. I'd love to do it again.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
All right, man. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe. Check out Wake Up Warchant.
Little shake voice there, my guy.
Wake Up Warchant in the morning. And I was trying to power through it. You couldn't just let me slide. Couldn't just roll with it.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Wake Up Warchant in the morning. Jeff Cameron Show, the JCS, wildly popular. Coming in the afternoon. We'll have plenty of content. I've got the 3-2-1 coming. 4-0 Florida State. Got Wake Forest coming to town this weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks, D-Rob, and we'll talk to you all next time.